In the myriad of reasons, I re-downloaded Blender and jumped back into this wild world of 3D stuff. The one that stands out most prominently is the same reason that I always have when I explore new softwares and techniques. How can I use this to make my OC look cool? Is the question I always ask myself when I am standing in front of a blank canvas, or in this case, a blank default cube. I made a video a little while ago talking about the power of having OCs, and that video still stands in this case, even when that character breaks every possible thing in the software you're trying to learn. Again. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a little series I like to call the Blender Discourse course. Like I said at the top of this video is just me talking about my experience commissioning, modifying, and subsequently trying to animate a custom model of my character Laura. The following is a list of things that were broken because of her, and my meddling, because I have to find a way to blame myself somehow. Broken item number 1 on the docket is her hair, and the fact that I had to run simulations on it in order for it to be animated and movable. That whole scenario cooked my entire GPU for so much of this process. It made me cry. So it is literally days and weeks later after I decided to just abandon this project with the hair. Turns out maybe I needed to get some more RAM. So I bought some more RAM on Amazon, and it kind of worked. Or at least I thought it did. I baked the I baked the entire file, got the hair mesh ready to go, got everything cached up, got everything ready to go, and then as soon as I clicked the animate button, what is this? The hair explodes into Cheetos. I'm just like, I'm over here like, why? How? My Cheetos, they fallen and they can't get up. Now they're back. But how? I thought I did everything right. Don't put hair in Blender. Never put hair in the blender, okay? Just avoid it. Fortunately enough for me, it wasn't just a problem I was dealing with. The artist I commissioned to make the model had the exact same problems, so much so that he actually issued me a refund for the entire commission because of how difficult it was to finish. But my stubborn self decided that he should get paid and I should get a thing that he spent a week working on. And so here we are. Another thing that happened that I didn't realize until way after this animation was done and distributed everywhere was that the textures on her boots were completely different than what they should have been. I didn't notice until well past a month ago when I could have actually done something about it. But funny enough, it only took me about 5 seconds to change the textures back, but I still have no idea how they got mixed up in the first place. I've made so many copies of this model just to make sure that nothing gets lost when I do actually make backup files. But I guess I'll find out if I go back far enough. But since I got it fixed now, I don't have to worry much about it. I'm definitely glad I did notice it and fix it before the next video. Stay tuned. Another thing that happened during the animation process was the fact that I completely forgot how to turn on and off certain bone groups in Blender. But that's not really the problem that the model caused. That's just kind of how it came to me default wise. Also, the Genesis 8 female bone structure is so weird that I had to delay an entire Street Fighter video, which I should have done a long time ago because of it. But now that I know how to do it, stay tuned for that. So the actual problem here was that the textures were too dense for my GPU at times. So I actually had to be careful with how I started and stopped the animation preview in Blender. The animation preview is exactly what it sounds like. Once I started the animation preview by simply pressing the spacebar by accident like a normal human being, that's usually how the entire scene would end up chugging along for about negative 3.5 seconds. Then I have to spend more time waiting for the entire thing to catch up before needing to pause the animation at the exact right frame in order to get back to work. Fun process, right? Now you see why I've been using the Star Wars models for a large portion of this video series. The final shenanigan came when I tried making an animation using Laura and the hoverboard that I made for her. You'll see it in a bit, but this was actually the project that made me go buy some more RAM for my laptop. Now at this point I was using 32 gigs of RAM, but then I upgraded to 64 a couple of days later. Thanks Amazon for your 2-day shipping. The entire animation process for actually animating this model was a lot easier than I expected. Well, I think that was mainly because I got used to the Genesis 8 bone structure a lot quicker than I thought I did. I still didn't understand how everything worked, and by understanding how everything worked, I mainly mean how to turn on certain bone groups. I talked about that earlier, but once I got past that, rigging everything and keyframing everything was a lot easier than I thought, so I was very happy with that. I think the hardest thing was to get the fingers to tap as well as get the knees and the feet to bend where they needed to. After I got the foot tapping done and out of the way in regards to keyframing that for the animation, I moved on to actually stepping onto the platform, or at least stepping onto the hoverboard. The hoverboard took 5 seconds to animate because it's just gonna come in and come straight out, and I'm very happy with that. In fact, I actually turned off the hoverboard from most of the rendering that I actually had to do. I had 4 cameras, all of them were rendering their respective sets, so I had to wait roughly about 4 to 5 hours, maybe 6 hours. I think 7 hours was the longest one. I think 7 hours was for the foot tapping because just the textures, like I talked about earlier, those textures were crazy and abysmal at times because they took most of the rendering time. Any animation that I make that usually takes more than 5 to 6 hours is because of the textures, as well as the quality in which I'm also rendering, because I rendered all of these at a high sample rate so that they can be as high quality and as crisp as possible. So I sacrificed most of that time I could have spent doing something else to get a higher quality version of what I was already working on. So yeah, it kind of worked to its advantage for me, but in hindsight, maybe I could have used that time a little better. I mean, I did work on other stuff, but I feel like I could have did something different. Also, let me know what you think of the sound design in the animation, because that was a fun process in itself, something that I actually worked on beforehand, because I made this animation at the same time that I did the Mandalorian video, which you can check out in the Blender Discourse course playlist. I think the animation as well as the sound design for the Mandalorian video was a lot better for this one, but this was the first animation that I really put a lot of time into. And I did fail a little bit, but I'm happy that I failed the way I did. And so with all that being said, here's the final animation that broke everything the first time. Overall, I enjoyed the animation. I enjoyed the look of it. I enjoyed making it. I enjoyed the process, as painful as it was. And I do enjoy looking back at it now, even though it's been roughly 3-ish months since I made it, or at least it's been a month since I've last seen it. Like I said, the texture was really one of the big problems that I had going into this entire project, but it was a welcome problem and a welcome change in pace from what I had been doing in Blender for the last few days that led into this project. With all that being said, hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already for more of this series, and leave a comment too. Tell me if I actually overreacted to how crazy the entire process of modifying this character was. I'd really like to know. And feel free to check out the rest of the Blender Discourse course playlist that should be on screen now. You probably won't regret watching the first 5 videos. Maybe. Other than that, I will check you all later.